movie lovers, and welcome to the show. Today's podcast episode, I have my good friend Michelle with me. Say hello to everybody, Michelle.
Hi, everybody.
And today we are reviewing the 2015 Matt Damon drama slash comedy, if you will, of The Martian. This movie came out in 2015, and this movie actually had a budget of 108 million. It made 630.2 million dollars at the box office, and it had a release date of September 30th, 2015. This is actually one of my favorite Matt Damon films and everything, aside from Good Will Hunting and a bunch of other films that we have. But with further ado, let's go on ahead and get into this. The movie starts off in 2035. The crew of Ares 3 mission to Mars is exploring Alcedadel Pentella on Martian solar day. SOL 18 on their 31 Sol expedition, a severe dust storm threatens to topple their Mars ascent vehicle MAV. The mission is scrubbed, but as the crew evacuates, astronaut Mark Watney is stuck by debris. Now, here's the thing. I actually like the opening scene. It actually gives you the tone of the film. We know that Matt Damon is actually being stranded by his other crew members and stuff like that, because of the fact if they winded up staying to try and help him and everything, they would have probably been dead as well. So I definitely love that aspect where, they don't want to leave him, but they know that they have to leave him on that level. What about you?
I agree. And also, like, in all honesty, there's no reason to think that he had survived at that point. Because as they said, like, he had a breach in his suit and he couldn't have survived for more than a minute with that breach in his suit. But it turned out that, his blood and the debris that had actually gone through his suit had clogged the hole in it.
Right. And then also, too, I liked how they did the thing where all of the crew members are getting ready to leave Mars. And then you see Beck. She looks over to her left and she sees Mark's seat being empty and everything, knowing that maybe she didn't maybe make the right choice. Maybe she should have waited a little bit. Maybe she should have went out there and helped him. But it was like, look, and I liked how they winded up covering this like later on in the film. It's like, look, you did all you could do at that moment, at that time. So really, it was a life or death situation. It's like,
if you remember, even before that, when the storm warning had gone off, they had said Mark had tried to say, "Oh, let's wait it out anyway. Let's see if we can just wait it out. Maybe it won't be as bad of a storm as we thought it would be." And it turns out it was a good thing they did leave, because the MAV had actually started to tilt before they even were able to take off. So, like you said, if they would have waited, there would have been no way that they would have made it off.
Right, and then at that point in time, though, too, you actually have, matter of fact, you actually have the person that's actually in charge of NASA going on TV, making the announcement that Mark has actually passed away, and that's not even the case. I like how they go into like the aftermath of Mark, though, and everything, and he winds up coming out of that whole entire situation. It shows the wounds on him. And of course, we wind up finding out that pretty much the shrapnel is pretty much what saved him.
Yeah, exactly. And then he does like a little mini surgery on himself.
Right. He winds up doing the surgery on himself, taking the antenna out of his side and everything, doing some surgery. And also he winds up doing that. And then, of course, he's trying to bait on what he should do, because you can definitely tell there's a look of worry on his face, which I don't, even though there's no dialogue and stuff like that within it, but you can tell there's a lot of emotion when it comes down to his facial expressions and everything else. He's like, I'm probably going to die here, is his first reaction.
And I mean, I think that's real for anybody who would be in that kind of situation. Right. Even like, think of like people get stranded on an island type of situation. The first thought is like, how am I going to make it through this? Like, there's not a lot of options if you don't have the skills and the necessary items to survive.
Exactly. And then also too, I liked how he goes into the whole entire thing. He sits down, thinks about it. He goes, I'm not going to let Mars kill me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to figure out a way to get off this planet, to reach out for help, let everybody know that I'm alive. I'm not going to let this planet be an overburden for me and to let it take over me. So I definitely like that aspect of it, where you go into the transformation of like, I'm gonna die here, so I might as well just give up. You can tell that he was on the verge of probably giving up on that first day, and then he just thought about it. He goes, "I'm a botanist. I can do this. I can do what I need to do." And everything. And I really thought that I love the science in this movie, though. The science in itself was really entertaining, to be honest with you, as if that you can do this on a dry climate planet and do it in that kind of aspect.
And I was actually, because of course I rewatched it for this matter, and we were discussing. I was like, I know potatoes obviously need water and blah 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 to survive, which he winds up growing later in the movie, and I was like, but what about sunlight? And then I was like, oh yeah, well, potatoes grow on the ground. Like they don't really need all that much sunlight to actually grow a potato.
Exactly. And then I liked how, now, of course, this is all happening within 4 years later as well, of him being on there. Because I like the fact that they actually gave us a timeline on how long he was actually up there for, and broke it into it that way. Because otherwise, we're like, okay, is he doing this in a course of 1 day after, or 2 or 3 days after, or is this going to be a course of so many years? But it's 4 years after, yeah.
And it's great that he keeps reaching out to, he keeps talking to himself through the cameras, through the videos, because not only are they super entertaining, but they're also kind of explain the timeline better in a way than just saying, oh, it's been a month, oh, it's been a year. Like it really breaks it down for you. Like he's got to break down and solve each problem as it comes.
Exactly. One step at a time. Not only that, but it goes with the transformation of his face, though, too, with the makeup and things like that, which is something that I really liked. And I do like
loss.
Yes, the weight loss is wow. The weight loss is just dramatically.
It is, and I wonder how much weight he wound up actually losing for that role. I wonder if we can look into that.
That would be interesting if we can actually look into that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna look into that now.
Yeah, because he, from the start of the movie, looks like a normal, healthy, general guy, and then by the end of it, he's just like skin and bones, and you're like, wow, he had to actually lose that weight for that role, because we actually see him like without his shirt on and everything. So it wasn't just CGI and makeup, you know what I mean?
It was 40 pounds.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of weight to lose.
Yeah, he lost 40 pounds for The Martian. Which is just crazy to think that an actor having to go through that much physicality for this role, and showing the physicality and also doing the acting on it, was just really great. It hits you with an emotional level and everything too, and the respect of the character on what Mark is actually going through.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And like they even do a great job, like you said, with the makeup, from progressing him from, again, healthy guy to, like, you see later his teeth look kind of rotten because he doesn't have the things to properly take care of himself. The facial hair growth, the hair growth, everything is so like perfectly on point to show the time dialogue.
Right. And that's something that I really liked, was the fact that it shows the tooth decay, it shows all that stuff. But, I definitely liked how he started planting the potatoes, and he's also rationing everything off too, and he's also explaining the rations and stuff like that. And he goes, well, it was enough for this much and everything. So what I'm going to do is, instead of taking all the food from me, I'm going to ration it off each day, so that way I can have enough food for myself. But I know I'm going to run out of food eventually, so I'm going to have to do something. And then that's when he brings up the fact that he's a botanist. So he winds up taking some of the science that he has with NASA and stuff like that. But I also liked how he does the crops. He ends up doing like the crops and everything, and then he takes the BMs of all the people on his crew, and he stirs it around. And I like how he makes crack jokes at his crew members and everything.
Yeah, he's like, Johansson.
He goes, what is in, I don't even want to know what's in you. Just starts pouring it down, then stirring it up, and then to make the soil, and then next thing you know it, he winds up making a crops potatoes on Mars, which makes him.
And I really love the part also, he's building the thing to make more water for for the potatoes, and he actually blows himself up. And when he goes to sit down to record that, like, he just blew himself up, you literally see he's still smoking.
Right. And I like how he goes, I blew myself up.
Yeah, like, and he did. He really did. He's like, as soon as my ears stop ringing, I'll get back to it, basically.
Exactly. I do love the humor, though, that he has. And it's like, he didn't, you can tell that he didn't, like, he got all his other physics right, as far as the botanist does, but he didn't count on the backfire of the fire whenever he had to light it, because he forgot that with oxygen and stuff like that causes it to explode.
Well, and I think it wasn't that he wasn't expecting it to explode. He said he had done the math wrong because he hadn't accounted for his breathing. So him exhaling was not mathematically corresponded into his math.
Right.
And I also, he really is so funny throughout it. And I imagine in order to survive, you would have to keep that humor going, you know?
Right, exactly. And then on Earth, NASA satellite planner Mindy Park is reviewing aerial hub images, notices moved equipment, and realizes Watney is alive. NASA director Teddy Sanders. And let me just tell you, I thought that I forgot what his name is. I'm drawing a blank on who played him.
Teddy. Yeah, it's the same guy from Dumb and Dumber.
God, how can I forget his name? If you would have asked me when we weren't on the show, I could actually think of his name.
I know, me too.
Jeff Daniels is the one I'm thinking of. But I didn't realize this until the third time watching, or maybe the second time watching this, how much of a dick he actually is and everything in this movie. Because he's like, do I really, and I understand from a business aspect when it comes down to NASA, do I really want to risk the lives of my other people to save one person while endangering the other crew? I totally understand that. But at the same time, you're ignoring the fact that you have a crew member that was on an old mission 4 years ago, and you don't want to do anything to try and help one of your own. And then you're trying to figure out a way and an angle to where you're trying to figure out how to tell the newscasters on how this image came, because they have 24 hours and everything too to actually release the details. Right. And the girl's like, well, we have 24 hours to release the pictures. She goes, yeah, but we need to have context behind it, which I agree with him on that. Right. But then there's the other dickish part that comes in later on. But, you know, right.
And I had said to Rick about that exactly, that in reality, we would never have found out that he was alive. And he was like, but they have to legally release those things after 24, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh man, that satellite suddenly stopped working that day and never picked up again. Because I'm telling you, we would never have known in the real world. That's one of the things that I was like, oh, that part's a little fake, because the reality is, before anybody else knew, it had been taken down.
Exactly. They would actually be confronting the Watney and everything too. They would actually be confronting their astronaut rather than it being aired on TV and everything too. They would actually have this in hiding. It wouldn't be nonchalant where everybody knows about it and everything too.
And also, especially because they don't know what kind of shape he's in. He could just, they wouldn't want to air out, oh yeah, we accidentally left this astronaut on this planet, oops, our bad, and he's alive, and then 2 weeks later be like, nope, never mind, he's not alive again.
Right.
Like, they wouldn't, it would have been top secret.
Exactly. And then also too, this is also where Teddy, you know, this is of course where he winds up publicly releasing to the news, though the Ares 3 crew are not told, so that they remain focused on their missions. So what did you think about that? Did you feel like that was a little bit of a dickish part about not telling the other crew members, hey, look,
I get where he came from by not telling them and saying, like, they need to focus on their mission at hand. But I also get that they would want to know. In the reality of it is, they probably wouldn't, like I said, it would be so top secret, I think, in real life, that nobody would ever know that he survived.
Exactly. I think that, you know, he handled it all right. and I understand where he's coming from, but I think that with the crew members, they should have known that he was alive. Though I think that Teddy should have told them in a sense, even
And if
though it
they
might.
were going to tell somebody, they should have known before the public.
Right, exactly. That's one of the little small pit things that I had about it was the fact the public should have been the last ones to know about it. It should have been between NASA and the crew members, not
Also, I'm
between.
surprised with how public it went, how quickly it went, right? I'm also
Right,
shocked that none of the crew members' families informed them.
that's true. Because you would think that because of news and everything else on how fast news actually travels,
Right.
that they
Because
would
there was
actually.
people in other countries that knew. So you can't tell
Right.
me that the families of
Those
these astronauts don't have you can't tell me that they're not Googling what's going on with it every single day.
right. And why are we spending money saving Matt Damon again?
Again.
Right. And then Brandy says, I think it's cool that he did things for survival. Most people would have given up. I agree. I mean, like we said before, he was thinking about giving up, and then he has like that last look on his face, like, you know what? I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm going to go on ahead. I'm going to do what I have to do as a botanist and try and figure out a way off of here.
I like in the beginning, early on, he kind of goes through. He's like,
The emotions.
Even the way that he could die. He's like, if my water filter breaks, I'm dead. If too big of a storm hits, I'm dead. If a hole in the hub happens, I'll just kind of implode. Like, and he kind of goes through like he's like, and if nothing else, I don't have any food. Like after I finish the rations, I'm out of food. So he's like, so I just got to figure out how to, figure it out.
Exactly. No, that's not a hand on opinion on Matt Damon or anything like that. It's a joke because of how many times we had to save him in certain movies, like Saving Private Ryan, for example.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean by that. But another thing though too that I want to mention is this. When he's putting up the containers of everybody else's stuff and things like that, and this is like when he was his first day on the planet and everything, he's just putting up everybody's stuff, and I feel like at that point he's like giving up because he's like, you know what? They're not here anymore. I'm just going to put this up and everything. And then when whoever wants to find it, finds it. Because at that point he was actually at the point of giving up. At least that's what I saw.
Oh, see, and that's not how I saw it at all. I saw it more as he was like, let me figure out what supplies I already have that I might be able to find useful in their personal stuff.
Okay, that's actually another way of looking at it. I didn't think of it like that.
Like later he winds up using, I can't think of the one guy's name now, but he winds up using the cross with the Jesus on it, and he winds up using that to be the wood. That's the only flammable item he can find, and he even
Michael
says
Pena's, which was Lewis's. Funny thing is, his name was Lewis, so that was actually Lewis's item, which is Michael Pena's character.
Yeah. And he even says to the little Jesus, he's like, and I'm trusting that you'll be all right with this in my dire circumstances. Like
that part made me laugh because I have a huge thing about dark humor. And whenever I saw that, I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty funny. Yeah. Because if I was in that circumstance, it's like, it's a crucifix with Jesus on it. Do I really? Yeah, survival.
Yeah, survival.
Well, right.
And he does what he has to do to survive. So,
right.
I mean, mixing up poo is worse than that.
Exactly. That's true. That is very true. And you know what, though? This is another thing I forgot to mention, though, whenever it came down to the fuel and stuff like that. He was mixing water and leftover rocket fuel to make everything, to do the soil fertilized and the crew's bio waste and manufactures water from the rocket fuel. That's something that I had in my notes.
Yeah.
And then he plans
he said he had plenty of it from the old ship. Yeah.
Right. And then he also begins modifying the rover for the journey to Ares and everything too. And then on Earth, NASA satellite planner Mindy Park reviewing the aerial sub images notices. Okay, this is stuff that I already mentioned before. So then Watney takes the rover to retrieve the nearby Pathfinder probe, which fell silent in 1997. I love that little Easter egg of the land rover, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because Mars is actually one of my favorite planets, to be honest with you. I'm a sucker for Mars movies and stuff like that, and Mars has always been my favorite planet, even with Total Recall and stuff like that. But I remember as a kid watching the Land Rover. I remember just being psyched up about it and seeing what they can discover on Mars, and then all of a sudden they just lose track of it, and they don't know where it's at. And so happens to be, he winds up finding it. And I thought it was really, it's a nice little Easter egg to something that happened years ago.
I not only do I like that that's like something like a blast from the past type of thing, that it's also a real thing from the past, but
Right.
also when he pulls it out and it really is very 90s
Antique-y.
technology, like,
Right.
and you're looking at this camera and you're like, like, how is this thing gonna help you at all? Like, what were you thinking? But
Right.
he had a plan and he figured it out.
Exactly. Because at that time too, they can only take like single shot photos.
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, you had to talk in code as well. So it was basically breaking everything down in code. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is huge and bulky. And that's another thing. The camera is definitely something that's antique-ish now. And everything.
Right.
Something
and then even the code that he winds up having to use is like 90s computer coding.
Right.
And it's
which
like,
is totally different.
Right, because computer coding now is so different now anyway. But it's so funny because it's like, what was it? It's 13 symbols or 16 symbols, I think, instead of the 26 letters. So he was like, it's too close together. So it's like when you think about it, like they really had to go way back to figure this all out.
Exactly. And, and then of course, I liked how they brought the model into NASA though, too, to break down the model and figure out the coding for themselves though, too. So they're right there with Matt Damon. At the same time, Matt Damon's setting all this up. They're setting up their little model and everything inside their area to figure out the coding and everything too. So I definitely liked how they played off with that. And then, of course, Matt Damon, and this is something I don't understand. Like, I know that it's a worldwide event, but even though it's a worldwide event, you don't know the condition of this astronaut. You don't know anything. And then here you are wanting a snapshot of him and everything up in space.
And what did I get? The Fonz? Because he poses like Fonzie. And she was like, I need a shot of his face. Oh, no problem. We'll tell him to take his helmet off.
So he can die. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, how much more proof do you need, lady? I mean, come on, that's him. It's not like there's other people up in space.
Yeah.
And everything too. But
it is funny though, like because that woman in that movie is also funny. She is the one who early on is like, what do we do? Go public and say sorry, we left your astronaut on Mars, but and we told you he was dead, and we had that really nice service. Oh, but guess what? He's alive. Our bad.
I really love that remark, to be honest with you. And so, that's just like a scientific analogy, something that NASA would cook up, which I thought that was funny. It's like, instead of using all these scientific breakdowns on how he survived, he goes, well, we left someone on Mars and everything on an accident. He survived. My bad.
My bad.
But Brandy said this, though, too. Matt Damon is actually in a lot more. Yeah, he is in a lot more movies. Yes, totally in real life. The public would have last to know, and NASA would have covered their butts. Yep. Yeah, Kristen Wiig was actually the person that said, my bad. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. So, let's see here. So, from there, we actually have the other stuff, though. He establishes two-way communication with Earth, for first using handwritten signs, and then sending and receiving ASCI in hexadecimal form. NASA transmits software patch to link the rover with the Pathfinder and communicate.
So they can actually like just type to each other, right?
Right. And here's the thing. I really like that texting back and forth, but why would they have that on the air as well? You know, it's like back and forth texting, back and forth live over the.
Right. Why? And also, why wouldn't that be something that would have been hooked up long before, like when they were all actually on the planet?
Right.
You know, because they were like, oh, it's just a matter of changing a couple lines of coding. And it's like, if
Right.
that's the case, they could have had that
The whole
between
time.
Earth and Mars the entire time.
Right. But
But
I thought changing the coding stuff was actually pretty cool. I definitely like that. But as far as the texting back and forth, being on air live on TV, on national TV,
I
I'm
know.
like,
And
that's like a
especially
little small
because
nitpick.
he winds up cursing and he's like, and they're like, careful, you're on live television. And then he says something when they don't tell you what it is.
Right.
And you're like, part of you really wants to know. And the other part is like, it's probably better that you don't because it leaves it to your imagination.
Right. And then there's also the WTF moment, though, too, as
Right. Because
well.
when he finds out they didn't tell the crew.
Exactly. And then I like how one of the guys is like, so does he mean like, what the fuck? What's going on? Or does it mean like, just what the fuck? And he goes, no, I think it's the second one.
Right. Yeah.
So I definitely like that aspect though to it, but it's just like a little small nitpicky part and everything, but not much. It just brings out some humor into the film to keep it
and
going
it's
a little
good
bit.
to kind of figure out the plot holes and to see, because with pretty much any outer space movie, there's going to be a plot hole somewhere. Something that you can nitpick at, but that's kind of the fun of it too, is like going like, oh well, this part seems really scientific and real, but this part seems a little far-fetched.
Right. And then I also like the other thing though too, where you have this other guy who is a really smart guy. He was over there doing something with not the software or anything like that, but he's in the server room.
Yeah.
And everything. He flies over. He's a physicist, I think. And he comes into NASA. He goes, look, I figured out what needs to be done. And they're like, who are you? and
he's like, you need to hang up the phone.
Right. He goes, you need to hang up the phone. And like, who the hell are you? He goes, just hang up the phone. So,
and also when in the moment when he has the like aha moment, his boss is there and he's like, oh, I've got it. And he's like, you've got what? And he's like, I've got it. And he like walks out and he's like, you know, I'm your boss, right? And he's like, yeah, like, sure. Like,
sure,
you go
whatever.
ahead and think that. You go ahead and think you're the boss.
Right. And then also, too, I like the moment where he winds up calling a secret meeting that was in the text of Lord of the Rings. And so happens to be Boromir was there. the
Eldron.
Eldron was there and everything, which makes it even more comical. and everybody's like naming off being told geeks and everything, and then the girl's like,
she just doesn't get it.
No,
she's
she doesn't.
Like, why would it be called that? And she's like, does everybody know this? Yeah, everybody knows but you, honey.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, it gets into the serious part. It's like, okay, so what we're gonna do is you're gonna be Mars. You're gonna stand here.
Yeah, this pen.
And then
I'm sorry, what's your name? And he's like, Teddy. I'm the, president of NASA.
Well, Teddy, you're gonna stand here.
He's like, oh, nice to meet you. It just keeps going.
And you know what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on ahead, pick them up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on ahead, go over to Mars, and then we're gonna pick them up, and then from there we're gonna go on ahead and go, and then fly back to Earth. And
it's so funny that like he's the one that figured it out after all these top scientists in the world had been working on it for so long. And all they kept coming up with was, let's do a food drop. Right. And of course, the first food drop winds up being a total failure because what did they do? They skipped the inspection in an attempt to get it to him sooner. And of course, he said like there's a 1 in 20 chance that it would fail inspection. And so they skipped the inspection, and of course it was one of the 1 in 20s that would fail.
But yeah, definitely. And then, you know, it just goes to show you how fast they would try and work at it and try and help him. But at the same time, they should have took the proper procedures and everything, because I know he would. I knew Matt's character would have actually been, you know what, just take your time and everything and stuff like that. Make sure that you get it over here in time and everything too. But you know, it's just one of those things where everything that they tried came out to be failure.
Well, and also because he was fine living off the potatoes for a while,
While
up until the hub basically gets compromised, and all the potatoes he had been growing still wound up freezing, and then he couldn't plant anymore.
right, and so that ended the potato fest. But
Yeah,
which sucks. But he found other ways and other means to actually survive during that time. But you know, it just sucks that every single time that they would actually try and plant something, either it burned up in the atmosphere or something bad would wind up happening. And then
right,
even it got to the point where they actually had to use Japan or China to try and help them.
right.
And and here's the thing, I like the conflict and the conversation between that team. It's like, well, if we
Yeah.
don't do anything, how does that make us look?
And the woman even says, like, nobody knows about it. So if we didn't help, no one would ever know we didn't.
Right.
And they still did help, which was very nice of them. But but it's funny because at one point I think Vince goes there to discuss with them the like, how it would go, and he's looking at their stuff and he's like, we haven't used equipment like this since the 90s. And they're like,
Right.
yeah. And he's like, no. He's like, you can't do that anymore. And it's like they can do whatever they want because they're the ones giving you the ship.
Right, exactly. And then another thing though too is we're also getting into the other part as well when we're entering the whole entire where we wind up seeing the back and forth between the old crew members and Watney as well.
Oh yeah, when he gets the access to the rover.
Well, also too, they wind up talking to him and everything too. Is like they were afraid that he would be pissed off at him for leaving him. And he goes, I'm not mad at you guys for leaving me or anything like that. He goes, that's totally understandable. So all that worry that the other character did, the main NASA thing, he didn't have anything to really worry about.
No, and it was mostly just, honestly, they had the guilt of leaving him behind.
Right.
And I mean, I feel like anybody would feel that way. The guilt of, even whether he had been dead or not, just of leaving him behind out there would weigh on anybody. And then finding out it's almost worse that he's alive because there's no way to get to him.
Right. And Watney is just more angry at the fact that Hemi's crew is unaware that he's even alive. So,
yeah, he's really mad they didn't tell him.
Right. So I definitely like how they played that out, and then acknowledge the fact that it's okay, guys. It's not your fault. I don't force blame on you or anything like that. Another thing, though, too, I really liked was whenever he was listening to their different. I liked how he was listening to different disco music and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and in the one part, he has the turn the heat around, and he turns it on, and he's like, "This is the least disco song that she owns," and he turns it on, and it's when he's got the radioactive heat thing going on in the back of the rover to keep himself warm.
That part just made me laugh. I mean, every single time and he goes, if I have to listen to one more disco track, I'm gonna end up killing myself up here. And then he's also watching Happy Days and stuff like that, stuff that the crew
left behind, their personal items. Yeah.
I like how their personal items becomes his personal gain just to see what they have.
Well, and I had said that actually early on in the movie as well. I had said
the comical aspect,
because those personal items, I'm almost surprised he didn't go through them more thoroughly early on, because a lot of those things probably, entertainment wise, to keep him sane, like not just the music, but like you said, that He found shows and stuff on the computers. He found games on the computers later.
Right.
Like,
And then he was making fun of the game that the one of the astronauts were playing and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's like, it's so lonely up in here. Like, your computer is more lonely than I am.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
But let's see, then of course the Mars mission director Vincent Copper and Jeff but this is actually the laboratory part. Bruce prepare an Iris space probe to deliver. Yeah, we already talked about that. That was in my notes. Then, of course, we also talked about a little bit about the China National Space Administration has been developing a classified booster rocket. The Tianjin Chin, I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it. Failing accommodate with NASA scientists. They work around official barriers and offer to repeat the Iris mission as Watney's situation grows riskier as time passes. And then, of course, Rich Parnell devises an alternative plan, have the Titan with a resupply the Hemis, which will then use Earth's gravity to slingshot back to Mars. So another thing, too, is this is also, too, where they said, so let me get this straight. We're going to go on ahead and make him have a tarp over our equipment. That's what we're sending him back in. Yep.
Oh, yeah. And they make him empty the entire ship, like all the chairs, all the control panels, everything. It's literally just a box with a tarp on the top of it at the end.
Right, because it will actually add weight, so anything that could add weight could actually be faulty to where he couldn't even leave or anything like that either. So that was smart.
Even going back a little bit too is, the Hermes crew had to all agree upon this beforehand also to go back to save Mark, which, I mean, in a heartbeat they really would have done, but it adds a whole nother year to their trip.
Right.
And, a lot of them already have families back home, and it's a long trip to begin with. And then to say, sorry, honey, I'll be home in another year.
Right. And then also, too, they slingshot him. They're not counting on how fast that he would be coming in. That's another thing that they forgot to calculate. And matter of fact, it kind of reminds me of the Big Bang Theory, where they forget to actually calculate other aspects before they actually go in with the plan. So
I think it was something where they had tried to calculate it, but it wasn't, no matter what, it wasn't going to be as accurate until it was happening.
Right. That's true.
Because they didn't know exactly how fast he'd be going still by the time he got out of Mars's atmosphere. And they also didn't know how far he'd be. So they were trying to, because they say it multiple times. They're like, oh, he's going this speed. Oh, he's going that speed. Or, oh, and now he's this far. He's that far. What can we do? Like, solve the problem.
Right. And then another thing, too, is this would actually set back Mars 2 years. With the Ares, Sanders reject the idea, considering it's too risky. That's another thing that we talked about, was the fact that he even thought it was too risky. Henderson apparently sends Parnell's plan to the crew. They uncommonly vote to impalement and disassembled NASA's. They wind up going on the mission to save him, which I thought was really awesome.
And they had to shut off like NASA's automatic controls to get them back on course. And they also wind up building a bomb in space, which is a huge no-no.
Right. And I also like how Bosnia is like, guess what? I'm a pirate. I'm a space pirate.
A space pirate. It's like one of my favorite parts of the movie, and how he goes over, call me Captain Blondebeard.
And then on top of that, you also have the NASA crew explaining the rules on how he is actually a pirate.
Right. And they're like, oh no, we know. He already explained it to us.
I really love that part. It's like he's totally geeked out over it and totally excited about it.
And he's like, oh, fastest man in the world. Yeah, I mean, it sounds good, but I'm not going to tell them that.
Right. Exactly. And then at this point as well. You know, I also like how the Hermes crew is like, well, I'm in. I want to save him. He goes, well, you're also part of the army. You're going to
Military, yeah.
be, yeah, you're part of the military. You're going to go AWOL. Oh, okay. Well, I still want to do it.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care.
None of
That's
them.
their friend.
And they'll never send you to space again. And they're all like, good. Like,
And
we've been out here forever. Like,
right. And I like how one of the crew members is actually doing the calculation in his head, where basically he's just saying, you know, it's been 500 days since we've been in space. He goes, that's more time for me to be able to be out in space. That's more for light years of space for me.
right.
So I'm
and
fine
that's
with
enough.
risking my life.
Exactly.
Right.
By the time I get home, I will have had enough space for my entire life.
Right. And Donald Glover was the person who came up with the plan to save Mark. That's another thing.
Right.
Too. Then of course Wani begins the 90 soul journey to Shepherd Philly, where the MAV to Ares has been pre-positioned. The MAV needs to be lightened to enter, like we said before, where they actually had to take out everything and stuff like that to be able to lighten the load.
Yeah, because otherwise it would have been too heavy and he never would have broken the atmosphere.
Right. Then Hermes, by using the spacecraft RCS systems, she also orders a directional explosion, decompression of the internal atmosphere to better align the ship, because he's actually coming in at a higher speed than what they anticipated.
Right, so they have to counteract it.
Right. And then I liked how I like how Mark goes on ahead. He goes, well, you know, I can always just use my glove. I can put a hole in my glove and I can use my thruster. I can be like Iron Man.
And he's like, well, I'm really selfish. You know, I want all the sad stories at home to be about me.
And so he winds up using and I liked how the people from Ares is like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. He goes, I'm going to do it. He goes on ahead, does it.
And even before that, the commander says something like, actually, maybe that's a good idea. And the other crewmate looks at her and goes, what? That's a terrible idea. That's the worst idea I've ever heard. And she's like, no, the thrusters. Like, and she comes up with a different plan, but of course, he still winds up having to do it. I'll just wave at you as you go by.
Then after that winds up happening, we actually have, you know, let's see here. I think we also have, after returning Earth, Watney becomes a survival instructor to astronaut candidates 5 years after the Ares 5 is about to launch.
Sorry, that last part again, that 5 years after the Ares part was going to launch.
About to launch, those involved in Watney's rescue are seen in the current.
Yeah, and then he finally does actually get rescued by the commander, and they wind up finally getting him on the ship, and then they're like, and he takes his suit off, and he, you know, of course he smells, and he's like, yeah, well, it's been a year since I've been allowed to take a shower.
Right. And everybody's like just looking at him. But imagine having to smell their BM though for that first couple of days or whatever, you know?
Oh yeah, but you know what? Like, honestly, it turned into fertilizer fairly quickly, at least. So I mean, at least it hopefully wasn't so bad once I'm sure the mixing it part was the worst. The mixing and spreading it part. Oh God.
Most definitely. So is there anything else that you want to add to this and everything too?
Just that this is really like honestly, if you haven't already seen it, you really should. It was like one of my favorite movies, definitely over the last few years. And I love that it has the funny factors to it for such a movie that could be so dramatic.
Same here as well. I thought it carried over with the drama, with the comedy. Also, too, not knowing if he's going to survive or not and things like that. I thought that was really good. I felt like this movie is really good. It just has little nitpicky small parts and stuff like that. But other than that, that was a solid film, to be honest.
And again, I think any movie where they go to outer space, I totally agree that you can sit there and, you know, pick at the little things that aren't scientifically.
But yeah, so my final thoughts is this. I think that this film is really great, really fun to watch, very entertaining. Also, too, if you guys haven't checked it out or anything, I strongly recommend that you guys check this out. I think that you guys be fully entertained by it. I think that this is one of my favorite Matt Damon films that he's played in, aside from The Departed, aside from see, there's also another one that he actually played in too with Robin Williams, and also too but yeah, definitely a great film, definitely a great time to watch and everything too. I strongly recommend it. Also too, guys, if you guys want to, go on ahead, don't forget to like and subscribe over here, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. Also too, guys, go on ahead and check us out tomorrow night. We're gonna have our thank you, Goodwill Hunting was actually the name that I was actually looking for. Thank you in the comments section, I do appreciate that. But yeah, I do have to say though, tomorrow night, don't forget, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific Time, we are going to be doing our Loki after show on Wednesday nights. So that's going to be coming up tomorrow night. So tune in for that. Thursday night, we have our Rambo review of First Blood Part 2. And that's going to be at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific Time. And then on Friday, we are doing our Too Fast, Too Furious review at the same time at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific Time. Go on ahead, check that out. Another thing, too, is if you guys want to donate to the page, how do you go on ahead and do that? You just go to GoFundMe.com/movieloversunite. Also, too, don't forget to go ahead and for all your entertainment needs and wants, just go ahead over to movieloversunite.com. And then after that, you're just going to go on ahead and you're going to go on ahead and go over to Movie Lovers Unit on Twitter as well. And then, of course, you guys can go on ahead and get an audio-only podcast episode where you guys get your podcasts from. And then if you're a sponsor and would like to sponsor us, just go on ahead, email me, reach out to me at movieloversunite@gmail.com. Of course, follow us on Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite on Facebook, Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite on Instagram, and underneath the same name on Pinterest as well. And then we also do some shows on stereo as well. So go on ahead and check us out over there at Movie Lovers Unit. And always, until next time, guys, it's been fun. It's been real. Can't wait to do this again. And thank you again for everyone that's joined in on the chat. Thank you, Michelle, for being on the show. We do appreciate it. I know that you lost connection and everything, but I do appreciate you being on the show. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for the show tonight. Thank you again.